Alrighty, we're coming up on another video, so let's go ahead and get started. Hey everybody, Steve here, the retired hobby tech guy. Yes, I was the guy along with my wife. We sold everything, the house, the cars, everything in the kitchen junk drawer. And what we ended up doing is taking a couple of suitcases and we retired overseas here in Korea. Today we're going to talk about Retire in the Philippines, the SRRV Classic and Courtesy visas explained for seniors, because so many seniors are putting off retirement or not even going to retire, and I want to show you the possibilities of retiring not only overseas but specifically in the Philippines and kind of enjoy some of your golden years if you can't retire in the United States. We're going to talk a little bit right now about we were recently featured in a Business Insider article, as you can see here. A U.S. Army vet thought he'd work into his 70s, a move to South Korea, was able to retire in my 50s. So there's me and my lovely wife. The article was really well done. It's about 9 pages. I was really surprised. The link is in the description box down below. With that being said, there are some other things that we want to take a look at, and especially with this SRRV visa, what I've done is I have made a PDF newsletter format. Now you can see the picture here, and I tried to really kind of put some information on this, make it appealing. I got the information from the PRA, the Philippine Retirement Authority, websites and information to give you the most up-to-date information, but do realize that visas and immigration can change, and that's something that we might see from the Philippines. Recently, a number of countries have increased the income or deposit requirement to get their retirement visas. Philippines has been fairly good, but I think they're going to catch on, and eventually they're going to raise the income price and they're going to raise the deposit price. So if you're on the fence or you need just that little bit of push to put in for the SRR visa for the Philippines, this might be the time to do it. Again, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I mean, there's a number of people. Case in point was back in last year, matter of fact, with Malaysia and my second home program, income requirements were about $1,500. There was a deposit amount, and there was a lot of people going to Malaysia and retiring. A number of people on YouTube had produced videos, and suddenly, without warning, the Malaysian government, the federal program for My Malaysia Second Home, raised the income level from about $1,200 to $1,500 to $8,000. I know who can afford that. And then they also increased the deposit to over $100,000. So what used to be an affordable retirement overseas option has suddenly gone off the table for a lot of Americans that might only have Social Security or limited retirement income. So with that being said, other countries are raising their rates. So I'm fully expecting the Philippines to eventually raise the income and raise the deposit rates. So if you're on the fence, you might want to take a look at this information. Strike while the iron is hot, and you can get grandfathered in with those lower income rates and the lower deposits, and you won't be left out in the wind like some of the other people were for like Malaysia and some other countries. A little bit of information about us. There's some info there that is in the newsletter that's going to be provided. You can find that in my Buy Me Coffee shop. For the cost of one copy, you can get all this information that we're going to go over here, but you can download it and have it into your hands. Have something tangible. I know people our age, I like this type of stuff, and I wanted to make a clear-cut, point-by-point and section that explains these SRRV visas. So basically what we ended up doing is that I retired from the military after 20 years. I worked for the state of Colorado, and my wife was working. And even despite all that, we saw the rise of increases in expenses, in housing, in utilities, in gas, in insurance, in property tax. Oh, don't get me started on the property tax. And when you take all these increases And what we did is look over the past 5 years and look at the average increases in all of those different categories, food, insurance, all of those things in the United States. And we projected that out to when I would be able to retire, is about my 70s. And it looked like we might not be able to retire for the fact that our expenses keep getting so expensive. So I was really depressed. I was really in a bad place, and of course my wife was as well. And then we found out about overseas retirement. Now, we had considered places like Mexico, but again, looking at the information as far as crime and statistics and cartel action and terrorist actions in Mexico, I kind of crossed that off the list, and people were really mad at me at that time. And years later, what happens? We have places who have retirement places in Mexico that have been overrun with criminal gangs. There's been lots of crime and a lot of people have been injured. Immigration has run amok. There's so much chaos and corruption there. Unfortunately, for the good people of Mexico, it is hurting them. I hope that their government is able to turn around. I hope the people of Mexico are able to turn everything around and go back to the Mexico that it used to be. But with that said, I had to cross that off the list. There was other countries. There was the Dominican Republic. There was Puerto Rico. There was Costa Rica. There was Thailand. There was some other countries that we were considering, along with Malaysia. But there were certain things that I was looking at, and as I looked in my crystal ball, I was like, yeah, this is going to be a problem for this country. I think we're going to see problems later on, so let's just go ahead and exclude that from our list of places. And then we found out, now, in case you haven't seen that, my wife is Korean. She was born and raised in Korea. We ended up meeting each other. We fell in love. Our eyes, locked across the crowded room. And next thing you know, we're married, and we've been together 35 years. And she's awesome. She is indeed the best part of me. And she became an American citizen. Korea doesn't really have a retirement visa unless you pay like $500,000 to invest in a Korean company, and that's not something that we had. We're like average Americans. So when we found out that there was a visa for people of Korean ancestry to come back to Korea, it was the F4 visa, that opened up the overseas retirement and everything clicked. And with that being said, my wife got her F4 visa, I've got the F1 visa, and now we're happily retired here in Korea. But with that being said, there's always good to have a backup plan, and we wanted a place, we wanted to retire in Hawaii, but it's just too darn expensive, and we love the beaches, and the Philippines has some awesome beaches. So this is another reason why we're looking at the Philippines, not only as a plan B, but also as a senior and as we get older, we might need some help. Now, I know nobody wants to acknowledge this because death and end of life type of things are, let's just not worry about that until it gets here. But really, we have to face these things. And assisted living care in the United States is way out of control. My grandmother was living in an assisted living facility in San Bernardino, California, and guess how much the cost was per month? It was like $8,000 or $9,000 a month. Totally insane. They couldn't find a place that was below $7,000. And when you start getting into the lower priced assisted living facilities, the quality goes down, the cleanliness goes down, and we were just amazed at how expensive it was. Who can afford to live in an assisted living facility? Even here in Korea, it's very expensive. So thinking forward about our lives as seniors as we get older and we might need that assisted living care, we looked at the Philippines and it's very affordable. So this is another reason why we're looking at the SRRV from the Philippines, because we're seeing some other things towards later in life. And we think that, if we get this visa, this will be a good plan B, and it'll also be a good alternative if we need assisted living help. So yeah, that's why we're going to jump into this. Now, in this PDF or newsletter format. We talk about what is the SRRV. We talk about the different types. There's classic and courtesy and expanded courtesy. Basically, there's two categories. We talk about the benefits of having this type of visa. Then there's the required documentation. We'll talk about the application process. And then the question of whether you should do it yourself or you should use an authorized marketer or agent, like a service that will process your paperwork and help you do those things. We'll go over some questions and a final summary. And again, all of this can be found in the link in the description box down below for the cost of one coffee. So let's continue on. Excuse me. What is the SRRV? It's the Special Resident Retiree Visa, is a special non-immigrant visa issued by the Philippine government through the PRA, and is designed to attract foreign nationals and former Filipino citizens to retire, live, and invest in the Philippines. It is often called a retirement visa. The SRRV is much more flexible than a typical tourist visa. It grants the holder the right to reside, here's the important point, indefinitely in the Philippines with multiple entry and exit privileges. This is huge. So just remember that. This means that you can come and go as you please without having to reapply for a visa each and every time. The core of the program is a one-time visa deposit, and again, these deposits are very low at the time of making this video. I fully expect these things to go up in price, so if you're on the fence and you need that one little push, this can be that push. The deposit remains in the principal's property, and can be withdrawn if they decide to cancel. So for some other reason, whatever it is, that if you put this deposit down and you're worried about, well, if I have to leave or go back to the States or I go to some other country, will I be able to get my money back? And it's very important to know that yes, you can. There are different types of SRRV, so the chances are there's one that is going to fit your budget and needs, and we're just going to jump right in and take a look at those. So with that, we have different types. There's the classic and courtesy / expanded courtesy. They used to have visas for people that were like 35 to 49, and they had the, smile and the human touch. Those have been discontinued. So again, immigration laws change from time to time, and so it's best to check on the PRA website to find the most updated information. But at the time of making this video, this is the most updated. So again, trust but verify. The first one is the SRRV Classic, and that's for active and healthy principal retirees who opt to use their visa deposit to purchase a condominium units or use their long-term lease of a house and a lot. Again, in the Philippines, foreigners are not allowed to buy land, but you can buy the property on the land, or you could buy a condo, which is kind of nice. It's kind of like apartment living here in Korea, where I don't have to worry about landscaping, maintenance, all of that. I just live and enjoy my retired life. With that, there is a deposit. Applicants age 50 years old and older without a pension have a $20,000 deposit. Now, compared to like my Malaysia second home, which has over $100,000 for a deposit, I've seen some places say that it's $118,000, $130,000. I mean, this is only $20,000 if you do not have a pension. Now, the reason for the deposit is the Philippine government wants you to be able to take care of yourself and or your family, so that's why those deposits are there. And again, you're going to use some of this to help procure a residence, living, things of that nature. The other one down here is another deposit. Applicants age 50 years old and above and currently receiving a pension. So if you have a lifetime pension or some type of pension that you can prove and get that notarized, you can show that to the PRA along with your application. We'll get into that. Your deposit is only $10,000. Now, the income limits. People have asked about the income limits, and we've seen income limits or requirements, not limits, but requirements of other countries keep going up and up. In the Philippines, the income requirement for a single applicant, so a single person, is only $800 a month. Can you retire on $800 a month as a single person? You can, but you're going to make a lot of compromises, and just like you will compromise when you retire in an overseas location. It just depends on how many and if they're acceptable to you. The income requirement for a applicant with a dependent, let's say a husband and a wife, is $1,000 a month. But when you look at the average Social Security retirement check, you'll notice that that is generally a lot higher. So there's a number of people who live in the Philippines that are able to retire just off their Social Security. And we'll get into more types of income and pensions. The next thing we're going to talk about is continue on. The SRRV Courtesy is for former Filipinos and foreign nationals who have served in the Philippines as ambassadors or diplomats. The visa deposit is $1,500. That is insanely low. In 2013, this all changed, and the Courtesy program expanded into other groups to include honorary consuls, retirees of international organizations, and former military officers. Now, when it says military officers, you might think U.S. military officers, but not enlisted. No, it does include those who are enlisted. Now, applicants under this expanded courtesy visa must be at least 50 years old and receive a monthly pension of at least $1,000. Note, the monthly pension can be one or more of the following. You can be a military pension, Social Security, VA disability, a state pension, a private pension, as long as it's a lifetime pension. So you can be a military veteran, which basically, if you served at least 2 years in the United States military and you have an honorable discharge, or you're a retiree and you receive a retirement check, as long as you have that income of at least $1,000 a month, your deposit is only $1,500. Again, that is insanely low. And again, a little word there that says, to verify with the PRA. The great thing about this retirement in the Philippines is, for us, it's going to be a backup plan. And there's a lot of people that, for example, retired to Thailand. Now, we went to Thailand, we've been to Bangkok, we went to Phuket, we're planning on a trip to Chiang Mai, and consider Thailand. This was like about 2 years ago. We're considering about maybe retiring in Chiang Mai. There are some things that I ended up seeing that made me scratch my head, and I was like, I don't know, let's hold off on this for a little bit. And lo and behold, what we're seeing now is that Thailand is ending up, retirees and expats are leaving Thailand in droves for a number of reasons. I've done a video on that, and I will include that in the description box down below. But basically what happened is their immigration laws are in chaos. You can go to one immigration office and ask a question, and go to another one, and you'll get 2 different answers. There's people that are saying they have even gone to the same immigration office in Thailand, talked to one person and got one answer, and then talked to another person in that same office, they got a totally different answer. There's also the fact that the Philippines is closing down foreigners' bank accounts, freezing them for no reason. Even Westerners who have authorized visa for like digital nomads or long-term visa holders, they've had their bank accounts frozen because there's no continuity between the Thailand retirement folks and the banking folks, because the banking folks say, well, your digital nomad visa that authorizes you to be in Thailand, just like the long-term visas, you're totally authorized to live in Thailand, but we don't consider that as a permit to work. So there's a huge disconnect between the immigration offices, the government, and the banks, and people are wondering how they're going to pay their bills. The other thing is there's increasingly high prices. Used to be able to get a beer for like 50 baht, 60 baht, which is maybe $1 something, and now it's like $5, $6 in some places, which is on par with having a beer at home. So really, is there a benefit to retiring in Thailand with all of these problems, and there's more bureaucracy, there's high prices in rent and housing and everything, and the old Thailand vibe is gone. There's also lots of problems with other countries coming into Thailand, and it's unrecognizable. There's a number of people, I made a video on this, excuse me, I made a video on this talking about how there's so many Indian people in Thailand that you walk down the street, it's like you're in India. It's just lost the original Thailand land of smile vibes. And so with that, with the increase in prices and the bureaucracy, and if you can't access a bank account, how are you going to pay your bills? It's a lot of veterans, a lot of retirees, even people on work visas are saying, you know what, that's it. I'm done with Thailand. So they're scrambling to try to find a replacement, and that's where the Philippines can come in. Let's take a look at some of the benefits of the SRRV. So let's jump into this. One of the benefits is an indefinite stay to live in the Philippines permanently without needing to renew your visa. That's kind of huge. Here in Korea, what we end up having with our F1 and F4 visa, my wife has a 3-year term, I have a 2-year term, so every few years we have to renew our visas, pay a little bit of money. It's not a big deal, but when you have an indefinite stay visa where you don't have to do that, it's just so much nicer. I'm just saying. Multiple exit and entry, freedom to travel in and out of the country whenever you want. So in other words, you're not limited. And as of the making of this video, there is no living requirement for this visa. Some countries, when you have the retirement visa, they say that you must live in the country X amount of months out of the year, otherwise you lose that visa. With the Philippines, they don't have that. And again, this is something that I think might change in the future, along with the deposit and the income requirements, which I think are going to be going up. Eventually they will. Another thing is exemption from Bureau of Immigration requirements. Holders are exempt from annual report and the ACR, which is the Alien Certificate of Registration Identity Card, which are required for most long-term visa holders. So what they've done here is basically it's a little less bureaucracy that you need to deal with, which is always good. Tax-free privileges. Tax-free privileges, those are nice. There's a one-time tax-free importation of personal effects, appliances, household furniture up to $7,000. They kind of have that same thing for here in Korea. It came out to about $7,000. So if there's things that you absolutely can't live without that you want to bring with you, you can ship those to the Philippines, and you have the opportunity to get those tax-free and not have a VAT tax or an import tax. So that's kind of nice. You have exemption from a travel tax if you have not stayed in the Philippines for more than 1 year from your last date of entry. A lot of other countries, when you come into their countries, you're going to get taxed and feed, and it just gets ridiculous. The Philippines, you're exempt from those taxes. The other good thing about this SRRV is the fact that you have the option to work, you can study, get an education, or you can invest in the Philippines. A lot of countries don't have that, and you're limited in either work or study or investing into the country. So you can apply for an alien employment permit to work, enroll in educational institutions if you want to continue your education in the Philippines. You can own or invest in businesses. This is kind of huge for some people because while they want to retire, they still need to work. They like building businesses. It's just what they enjoy, and if you enjoy it, just keep doing it. But with that being said, here in Korea, on my visa, I'm not allowed to work for a Korean employer. I'm not allowed to start my own business. Now, I can change my visa to an F513 eventually, which will be a few years down the road, and then I would have the right to work. My wife has the F4 visa. With her visa here in Korea, she is allowed to work. So it depends on the country and the visa laws. But the good thing about the Philippines, you can work, you can study, you can invest, start a business, you can do all of those things, and you can do it legally, which I always find to be the best thing. The other thing, dependents. The primary applicant can include a legal spouse and unmarried children under 21 years old as dependents. So if you're a younger, more virile retiree who has kids under 21 and you have a spouse, this SRRV might be something you might want to take a look at. The other thing we want to take a look at is the required documentation. This is just a general look. We're looking at an application form, obviously, a medical certificate, which is an additional out-of-pocket expense, which is going to be around 2,000 to 2,500 to 3,000 pesos in the Philippines. I think it's $50, $100, somewhere around there. You need a police background check that is apostilled within 6 months, so we're kind of talking about an FBI background check. And then in the Philippines, you'll need an NBI, the National Bureau of Investigation clearance. So again, you're going to do the FBI check. They're going to do their own check to make sure that you haven't gotten in trouble in the Philippines. And then you're going to need a Philippine bank certification. So when you put your deposit of whatever it is, the 20,000, the 10,000, the 1,500, for those of us who are veterans, you will get an authorization or a notarized certificate within 7 to 10 days of that deposit, and you will include that with your application packet. The other thing you're going to need, obviously, is a valid passport and tourist visa. We'll get into the particulars of why. The apostilled pension document, if you have that, again, for single, the income requirement is $800. If you're married, it's $1,000. With that, if you're married, you will need an apostilled marriage certificate. You will need an apostilled DD-214 or certificate of military service. And this can, again, for veterans, you can do a minimum of 2 years of military service with an honorable discharge. So if you got out with a general discharge, you might want to look and see how you can change that from general or other than honorable to honorable so that you can meet the requirements of this visa. The other thing you need is 8 2x2-inch passport photos. Some other places say 12. On the PRA, when I checked, it said 8. But hey, throw in a few extras. It doesn't hurt to have some. The other thing that I would suggest is that you can do these either in the United States or you can do these pictures in the Philippines. And depending on where you go, it could be less expensive in the Philippines, so keep that in mind. There is a PRA annual fee of $360. Those are for the classic visas. For the expanded courtesy, for those who are military veterans or retirees who have a pension of some sort, it is only $10. I know it says $410, but it's actually $10. Check the PRA website for the most up-to-date information, and there is the website there. So yeah, that's what we end up for the required documentation. There might be some other things depending on your situation. And again, immigration laws and requirements can all change over time. They might end up saying, hey, well, we need bank statements or maybe federal tax returns. That's what they do here in Korea. So again, check the PRA for the most up-to-date information. Next thing we're going to take a look at is the application process. Basically, you're going to contact the PRA or an accredited marketer. Accredited marketer is somebody who is authorized to fill out and help you submit this packet or paperwork to the PRA. And we'll get into that because, yeah, it's always good to have the pros help you out. You'll prepare the documents and get money for fees in your deposit. Obviously, you have to have that. You send copies of documents to the PRA and or the marketer. Now, again, this is interesting because you need to be in the Philippines when you submit this paperwork. That's very important. You have to be in the Philippines. Here in Korea, when we got our F1 and F4 visas, we could have got it at a Korean consulate in the United States. But the Philippines requires you to be in the Philippines when you submit for the classic or the expanded courtesy SRRV. You arrive in the Philippines, you'll also need a medical check, which is $50 or $100, somewhere around there. You'll need your visa deposit. You'll pay a one-time PRA application fee and then the annual fee, depending on which category of visa that you get. The next thing, you're going to submit the documents and passport to the PRA or the marketer. Eventually, it'll all go to the PRA. Be sure to have physical and digital copies when possible. That is always important because things get lost from time to time. Then, once you've submitted all that and you're waiting patiently for your SRRV to be approved, your waiting period can be 1 to 2 months. I've heard of people waiting like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, but usually it's 2 months or less, and you cannot leave the Philippines. They will also take your passport. So while you're waiting for the final decision on your application, you're still allowed to be in the Philippines. So don't freak out over that. But if it was me, you know how you can get your passport, but you can also get a passport ID card. I would get a passport ID card. It just gives me a warm fuzzy just in case. With that, after the waiting period, the PRA office, you visit the PRA office after they've contacted you or your marketer, and you will complete an oath-taking ceremony, and they'll give you back your passport. And in your passport will be the stamped SRRV stamp. So you're good to go. Congrats, you're an SRRV member. Again, there's some more moving parts, like you need to go to a Philippine bank, you need to deposit the money, but this is just the general application process. And again, this can change over time. So yeah, it's not too bad on this as far as getting all the documentation. I think people worry about this too much, but really if you get with a marketer, which I suggest would be the way to go, because somebody who's well-versed and experienced in submitting these packets knows all the intricacies, they can help you do this. So this brings up the question, can I do it myself, do the DIY thing, or do I use an agent or marketer, as they call them? Here in Korea, what we ended up doing is there's people that tried to do the DIY thing. They ended up making multiple trips, and we just ended up paying an agent to help us out, one and done, and it was just so much nicer. And I've talked to people who had horror stories who tried to do it themselves here in Korea, and I've also seen people talk about how they tried to do it themselves in the Philippines, and they got the runaround. It was a lot of wasted time and going back and forth, and oh, you forgot to submit this, or somebody forgot to tell you that you needed to do this or that. Again, we're gonna jump into this, whether we're going to use do-it-yourself or an authorized agent. Now, here's the interesting thing, is that the PRA has authorized agents that you can use. In other words, people have a certification saying that they are authorized to help with your packets. Now, some of these services do not charge fees for submitting your packets, so basically it's free to you. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because the PRA pays these authorized agents or marketers, as they call them, I think like $300 per application. And so that's how they get paid. They don't charge additional fees. It's like free to you, but it's not free. Nothing is ever free. But the PRA is paying that marketer to help and submit your paperwork. So with that, the good thing is that you still need to do your due diligence. You need to check reviews on marketers to see which ones are the most favored. Contact them, chat, see what services they offer, and the associated costs. If something doesn't feel right, go with your gut and simply look for another marketer. It's better to find a well-qualified marketer that you click with, than one you don't. You're retiring, so don't waste time dealing with people that you don't vibe with. The other interesting thing about these marketers is that some will charge additional fees, but that could be because they're just trying to get extra money, and they don't want you to know that you can get this work done for free. And I've seen people charge like $500, $1,000, $1,500 to process your paperwork. So in other words, you're paying them $1,500 and they're getting $300 from the PRA. That's a pretty nice chunk of change. They don't want you to know that there's marketers out there that don't charge anything. So again, it depends on your budget if you don't mind paying for that. With that being said, there are marketers who don't charge a fee and marketers who do charge a fee that will have additional services. Some of them will pick you up at the airport. Some will take you to the medical clinic. Some will take you to the Philippine bank, and they will help you open the bank and deposit the money and get your little certificate. So they will go above and beyond what others will do. Now, some marketers who don't charge anything might take you to the bank and the medical clinics to get your medical certificate. Others won't. Again, if a company or a marketer takes you to the bank and to the medical clinic and has some other things that they're not required to do, even though you're getting it for free, I would tip that marketer, because they're taking time out of their day. Yes, they're still making money, but if they do a good job for me, I'm going to tip them. So again, it's something, don't be the ugly American, don't be a Karen, don't demand, be nice, you are a guest in that country. Use an authorized agent. I really don't think there's any benefit to do the DIY. I know some people are like, oh, I can save, some money. Well, no, you can't save money, because if you use a marketer that doesn't charge you anything, it's still free. So I'd rather have somebody that's really experienced at doing this than rely on me that have no clue about the ins and outs of the SRRV application process. So, yeah. Now we're going to get to the part we're going to talk about the facts. The facts. Frequently asked questions. 1, can I apply for the SRRV outside the Philippines? The answer is no. We talked about this a little bit. You contact a PRA for requirements, or your marketer. You can also submit documents digitally to your marketer, but you have to be in the Philippines to actually submit your application, the entire packet, and then you have to wait in the Philippines for that approval. Number 2, do I need to be retired to apply for the SRRV? No, retirement is not a requirement as long as you meet the other requirements. So again, you could be 50 years old and older. If you don't have a pension, again, the deposit is $20,000, but you're going to need some money to live. So hopefully either you're still working or you have some type of income stream from some other vehicle. Number 3, is the SRRV temporary or permanent visa? The SRRV grants you a lifetime stay privilege in the Philippines and exempts you from those immigration requirements that other people have to deal with. So again, less bureaucracy. Yes, it's a permanent visa, lifetime stay. There might be a small fee that you have to pay for your ID card. I think it's like $10 a year, but I think you can do it. There was a time that you could do it for increments of 3, so you pay $30, you're good for 3 years, but your visa by itself is a permanent visa. The other questions we have. Number 4, can I withdraw from SRRV and get my deposit back? Things happen in life, and this is a consideration that I was looking at, specifically my wife, when you go to these other countries, and like my Malaysia second home, or, there's larger deposits. Can I get my money back? That is like the biggest thing she was worried about. And the answer is yes. Give the PRA notice at least 30 days prior to the intended date of cancellation. When the principal cancels their SRRB, this will automatically cancel the dependent. So in this situation, I am the principal, my wife would be the dependent, and if I cancel, hers is going to be canceled as well. Now, the other thing we're going to take a look at here is the sentence says, if the principal dies, the deposit will be released as per last will and testament. End of life stuff. We don't want to talk about it, but it happens. But again, that's something. Update your last will and testament to indicate what you want to do with your visa and so on and so forth. The other thing to note is that banks will withhold an inheritance tax with deaths of SRRB holders. However, the surviving spouse can take over as the principal. So if you're worried about your wife, let's say I kick off early and my wife is still there and she's kind of concerned, will she be able to stay in the Philippines? Yes, she can, because she can become the principal SRRB holder. So that's good to know. It's nice that they took that step and take the surviving spouse into consideration. The other question we have as we're rounding up is number 5. Do marketers provide free assistance or charge a fee? And we talked about this a little bit. Some charge free assistance because they get paid by the PRA. If you receive good service, again, tip your marketer. It just be a nice person. You're retired. Throw a bone to somebody who is helping you get a lifetime visa. Just do it. Just be nice. Usually I'm not big on tipping, but if somebody gives you good service that is a direct impact on your retirement, I will tip that person. I will take them to lunch. I will buy them coffees, whatever it takes. That is just how I roll. And it's nice because if you're nice to that person and then you have questions later on, they're more apt to be more friendly and help you out later on. Again, it's just being a good human being. Marketers can charge additional fee for their services. We talked about that. Marketers might include picking you up at the airport, taking you to the clinic, the bank, help with lodging or other additional services, but there might be additional fees associated with those additional services. So again, ask those questions to be sure. The last thing that you want to do is get blindsided and say, well, I didn't know about this. Well, now you know the questions to ask. Last question that we end up having is 6. How long does it take the application process approval? The good question, the application process, again, is usually 1 to 2 months after all the documents are submitted, your entire packet. The marketer will contact you, or the PRA will send you a text or email or whatever, and then that's where you go back and you do your oath ceremony and you get your passport with your SRRV visa stamp. So 1 to 2 months, that's more than enough time to check out all the different places in the Philippines. There's like 7,000 islands. With that being said, there's probably places that in every country that you should be wary of. So check on the travel advisories with the State Department and, ask some Filipinos there, hey, do you think about going here? And they're like, oh, no, don't go there. Kind of take that as food for thought. Stay where things are comfortable, where things are safe. And again, the Philippines has something for everybody. You've got beaches, you've got nightlife, you've got cities, and everything in between. You have mountain towns like Baguio, El Nido, Palawan. All of these places are just incredible. And if you like living in the beach and the heat, the humidity, go for that. If you're more into cooler climates, then go to the mountain regions and the mountain towns like Baguio. There's definitely something for everybody in the Philippines. With that being said, here is the final summary. We're going to close this out. The final note is that we hope you enjoyed this information, even if there's a few spelling errors in this. Try to do my best on this, but there's a wide range of opportunities, and the Philippines is one of those. The SRRV is probably the one that fits our budget and what we're willing to pay as far as deposits and meeting the requirements for this type of lifetime visa as a plan B and as a possible place if we need assisted living care, because it is really inexpensive in the Philippines. So our hope is to share our overseas retirement. We're here in Korea. And we share a lot of that on my YouTube channel, The Buried Life. You can see that in the description box, so please like and subscribe. Got to do that. But, for people that are feeling hopeless, people that are seniors, people that are getting ready to retire, and you're looking at your expenses in the United States, and you're like, I don't know how this is going to work. There's a number of people where the cost of living is going higher and higher, and their Social Security or their pension that they're on, the money they're receiving is not keeping pace with that. People are seeing that they're not going to be able to retire. So that's where overseas retirement comes in. Now, I'm not saying that I love the United States. I love the United States, and if you want to stay in the United States or retire in the United States, or you just don't want to leave, I'm a U.S. citizen. I am 100% pro-United States, Second Amendment, freedom of speech, and all that. But I like the opportunity of overseas retirement because we were able to retire early. We retired at 54, and our expenses are half of what we're paying in the United States. So for the people that are feeling trapped, and the seniors that are like, according to one survey, 75% of seniors that are getting ready to retire are not going to retire because they can't pay their bills. So overseas retirement might be the answer for people who can't retire, have the ability to retire, or even kind of like us, to retire early. That is huge. So with that, you can get a lot of information online. All of this was based off the PRA, the Philippine Retirement Authority, the most up-to-date information that I could find at the time of posting this. And if you found any of this helpful, there's links in the description box down below, but there's also links in this PDF that you can get for the price of a coffee. And again, there's a little thing down there, like and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that, and that would help. So with that being said, going back to the Buy Me Coffee page, for those of you who don't know what it is, here it is. The link in the description box, it'll bring you to the Buried Life, and you can buy me a coffee, which is kind of cool. The other thing we end up having is if you notice up here where it has that shop, see that little green thing, it's wandering around there, so shop. If you click that button or that link, what that will take you to is this right here. And there is the Retire in the Philippines document, which we just took a look at. And for the price of a coffee, you can download that to your computer and get it into your hot little hands. I don't know. I'm old enough that I like having physical things to look at and turn pages, take notes on. I can keep this list and say, yes, I've done this and check this and check this. Has the links to the PRA marketers, authorized marketers. And it's just a nice little PDF newsletter format. So there's an option for you to do that as well. The good thing is that if you don't want to buy it, you can just watch this video again and take some screenshots and you get the exact same information. So this is for convenience, or you can just watch the video and do it yourself. I don't know. I just find it easier just to pay people and have the convenience. I'm retired now. I can have the convenience. I'm totally for convenience now that I'm retired. So with that being said, we're finishing up this video. Again, check the links in the description box. A lot of stuff is going on. Again, like and subscribe. That would be the number one thing that you could do for me, and I would really appreciate that. If you need to contact me, if you just want to say hi, or you have questions about us retiring in Korea, or you want to chat about 3D printing and miniatures and hobby stuff that I do, I have that on my channel as well. You can contact me there. I answer every single email. Might take me a couple days, but I 100% answer. So doesn't matter, even the crazy people. And if you're into hobbies or considering retiring overseas, or you're close to retirement age, we're all family. So you're more than welcome to contact me. As you see this scrolling ticker down here, these are all the awesome people who have bought me coffee, and there's a link in the description box down below where you can buy me a coffee, and you can be one of these awesome people. So not required, but it's kind of cool, for influencers and YouTubers. I don't consider myself an influencer. I'm just a YouTuber that does this on the side. It's another hobby that I have. And when I find somebody that has good information, I buy them coffee. And this goes back to a long time ago. If you went out, had coffee with somebody, you talk, had a meal, this is the digital version of doing that. So, for some of us older people, you might be, what do you mean buy coffee? Well, if you click the link, you can buy me a coffee. So if not, that's totally cool. So with that, we're going to finish this up. This is the updated information, achieving your dream of possible overseas retirement in the Philippines using the SRRV, either the Classic or the Courtesy or Expanded Courtesy, those two categories there, as a possible option to get you retired as soon as possible. So again, prices are going to go up. We've seen it in a lot of other countries. I think the Philippines is going to do that as well. So I'll just leave you with the information. You make the best decision you can. And we'll just leave it at that. All right, we'll see you. Take care. Peace. Good stuff. Gotta have my coffee.